Hi, welcome to the Tailoring Lab. My name is Jacqui, and today we're going to sew on a button. So the first step is to mark the placement for the button. Lay your garment flat on the table, lining up the buttonholes with the existing buttons that are already on the garment. A lot of times the placement for the button has disappeared. The button's been off the garment for too long, so we take a tailor's pencil, put it through the middle of the buttonhole and make a small dot. If the buttonhole is horizontal, such as on a cuff, make the mark at the end of the buttonhole, as when the cuff is closed, the buttonhole will move to the end of the button. Priming your thread before you start sewing gets rid of the balled up knots and loose threads. So there are many ways to do this. I like to use my saliva. So I moisten my fingers with my own saliva and run it along the thread. There's also thread conditioners such as beeswax, and Thread Heaven is another thread conditioner. Thread Heaven is perhaps better than beeswax because beeswax leaves chunks of wax that can melt into your garment. So after conditioning the thread, clip it at an angle which facilitates for an easier threading of the needle. Pull the thread through the needle all the way to the end. After you thread the needle, make a small neat knot by forming a loop at the end of your thread. Make another knot on top of the first knot just by simply making a small loop, pulling it tight over the top of the first knot and clipping the threads just past the knot so there are no excess threads. Today I'm going to go through just the top layer, picking up a small piece of fabric with my needle. I pull the thread all the way to the end so it stops at my clean knot. I take another small bite of fabric right where the knot is. Again, pulling the thread through to form a loop. Put the needle through the loop, pull the thread through the loop to the end, and it makes a nice strong starting point. Attaching the button, we put the needle through the first buttonhole and holding the button between two fingers, I'm creating a little bit of space between the button and the fabric, which creates a shank. Going through the second hole, going into the fabric, coming up under the first hole, again keeping enough space for an even shank. I go into the first hole, back into the second hole, taking a small bite of fabric, doing this 3 times for cotton, 4 times for coats. A shank is good for strength, and also it creates a little bit of space between the button and the garment so that when the garment's closed, it has ease and it's not all jammed up. Wrapping the shank by literally wrapping the thread around the shank to form a loop and passing the needle through the loop, pulling it tight to make a knot. Do this about 3 times, more for coats. Creates a nice, firm, movable shank. And then we make a final knot by passing the needle right at the base of the shank, again to make a loop. Passing the needle through the loop and pulling it tight to form a final knot. Then to hide the threads, we pass the needle right back again at that base, pulling it tight, and clipping it on the other side will leave you with a completely clean button.